Hello, beautiful peaches. Welcome to the Macros, Metabolism, and Motivation Beautiful Peach podcast. I'm your host, Caitlen, here to help you find your most unwavering love, beauty, and kindness for yourself inside and out. I will be teaching you nutrition and macro tracking secrets, reverse diet and metabolism health tips and tricks, and motivating the heck out of you so you want to leap up and start conquering your goals right away. I am here to help bring you the light at the end of the tunnel so you can discover that self-love and truly become the most confident, beautiful peach possible. So grab a pen and a piece of paper, or if you're in the car or at the gym, go ahead and bump up your volume just a little so we can drown out those gym grunters next to you, and we can go ahead and dive right in. Don't forget to snag your completely free high-protein macro cookbook by simply doing a 5-star rate and review on this podcast. All you need to do is submit a 5-star rate and review, then send us your name and email through the link in the show notes so we know exactly where to send your cookbook. By submitting your 5-star rate review, this will also automatically enter you into the weekly podcast macro calculator giveaway. Every week, I give away a copy of my See You Schmidt macro calculator to one lovely winner who leaves an awesome 5-star rate and review. This winner is announced every week on my Instagram story as well as my newsletter email list. So leave that 5-star rate and review, and I'll see you in the episode. What is up, my beautiful peaches? Welcome back to the Macros and Metabolism Beautiful Peach podcast. Today, we are going to be talking all about tracking your macros versus tracking your calories and which approach is best for reverse dieting. I've got some controversial topics to chat about on this one, and I am so excited to take a deep dive here. I think you're going to be surprised with a couple of the ideas that I have for you. So to do a really quick refresh on what a reverse diet is, I have an episode coming out, I believe, next week that I will be giving a total beginner's lesson on reverse dieting. Now that we are in this new season of the Beautiful Peach podcast, the Macros and Metabolism Beautiful Peach podcast, it's time to do a total reverse dieting one-on-one. So stay tuned for that. However, for this episode, since that is not the main topic, what I really want to do, and really quickly here also, if you are somebody who is newer to reverse dieting, I do have past episodes all about reverse dieting, so go ahead and take a peek at those, and also know that there is one coming. I believe it's next week. Don't quote me on that. It could be in 2 weeks, but just know that it is coming your way. What is a reverse diet? The shortened version. A reverse diet is the gradual process of increasing our intake after a prolonged restriction, prolonged diet, normally done for weight loss, with the goal of increasing our metabolism to prevent mass weight regain. This restriction may have been 10 years ago, or it might have been now, it might have been current. But what's important to note is even if you did diet 10 years ago and you never did a reverse diet after that diet phase, you can still actually do that reverse diet now to help you get your metabolism back up and to lose weight with a thriving metabolism if that is your goal. I had somebody reach out to me on Instagram yesterday asking about the reverse diet course, and she thinks she needs to do a reverse diet, but she might not. She wants to lose weight. She's got 50 pounds to lose. She hasn't been dieting in 10 years. And after she dieted, she stopped. She saw the weight regain happen. It's been continuously going up. She's not eating at that deficit, so she doesn't think she has a slow metabolism. And so really talking through it, it does mean that she actually does still have a slow metabolism. It just means that she's eating more food, which caused that weight regain. So her metabolism still sits at a lower space. She still needs that reverse diet. And also, once she heals her metabolism, once she gets her intake up even more, she can lose that weight easily. So this then brings us into the topic of 3 things that I would like to talk about here when it comes to tracking macros versus tracking calories in reverse dieting. Now, in my own professional and expert opinion, with 12 years of coaching and education under my belt, I would like to say that tracking macros, in my opinion, is better when it comes to reverse dieting. And honestly, when it comes to calorie deficits and lean bulks and maintaining, I am a very pro tracking macros kind of gal. I will be giving you some devil's advocate thoughts on tracking calories later on in this episode. But I first want to give you my thoughts on why I do think that tracking macros is chef's kiss, the best. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about 3 different reasons why. One will be body composition. One will be ensuring we have proper energy and hormonal balance. The third one, adjusting, is actually done through adjusting our macros rather than our calories. There are methods we can do by adjusting our calories for a reverse diet, but I don't always suggest them. And we will talk about that in a little while. So first and foremost, I want to talk about our body composition and tracking macros for body composition in a reverse diet. I'm going to talk a little bit about tracking macros overall for body composition as well, just because I think this is so incredibly important. So tracking macros, quick rundown. Macros is the shortened term for macronutrients. Macronutrients is the category for our protein, our carbs, and our fat. Our food is made up of protein, carbs, and fat. So therefore, when we track our macros, we are simply tracking our food. All you need to do is look at a nutrition label. You can see your protein, your carbs, and your fat there. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now, when it comes to tracking our macros, there is a huge misconception that people think protein is the only macro that we need to be looking at. It is the most well-known macro out there of the protein, the carbs, and the fat. And the problem with this is we will have people so gung-ho to eat all of the protein that they completely forget about their carbs and their fat. So they end up eating way too much protein that then is taking away the benefits that we get from our carbs and our fat. So protein is amazing for muscle growth and recovery. It is completely phenomenal if you are somebody who wants to be building that beautiful muscle. And also we need protein even outside of those who want to be building muscle. Carbs, phenomenal for our energy balance in and outside of the gym and also our sleep-wake cycle. So a lot of people don't realize that carbs have so many more functions. And I'm not going to get into all of the in-depth functions of carbs and fat. I do have other episodes where I dive really deep into each of those. However, carbs are amazing for our energy and also our sleep-wake cycle. And fat, biggest misconception out there that I see so often, consuming fat does not lead to the fat that we see on our body. It drives me crazy when I see pro-low-fat people pushing fat's going to make you fat and all this craziness, because when we're in too low of a space with eating our fat, it's actually going to impact our hormonal balance, which is why so often people come to me and will do a reverse diet and will be healing their metabolism, and they start to notice all of their systems in their body start to work again. And it's because, number one, we're in this massive calorie deficit, and number two, we're not eating enough fat. We're also not eating enough carbs. It's going to impact the way that our body functions. So when we're eating more, it actually allows us to really make sure our body is going through a full reset and starting to work the way that we want it to work. I've talked about my example in the past. I'll do a quick run through here. I always tell my VPM girls, I'm like, I think of you guys as machines. And they're like, yeah, Caitlen, we get it. We know, we've heard the example. And I'm like, dang it, none of you are new to this. But I get excited because I think about our bodies as machines in the sense of when you think about a machine and you imagine a bunch of different gears that are making this machine move forward. What's going to happen is if one single gear in that machine stops working, all of the other gears in the machine are going to start to slow down, and that machine is not going to be working at its max capacity. If our metabolism is low, which means that we're not getting enough protein, we're not getting enough carbs, we're not getting enough fats, we only get enough food, we only get enough fuel, our protein, our carbs, and our fat, when we are eating at our metabolic set point where it needs to be, and then a little bit higher, which is why I always suggest when reverse dieting to go a couple hundred calories higher than where your reverse diet is to make sure that your body has some time to hang out in that space, in that higher calorie level. If your intention is to do a reverse diet down the road, get yourself up into a higher space. I have people who will ask me, they're like, hey, I'm like 200 off from where I need to be. Can I just stop my reverse diet? And it's like, no, I really would not recommend doing that. I highly suggest completing your entire reverse diet and also going a bit higher. I walk through all of that in the reverse diet course. But the thing is, we want to make sure we're absolutely healing. So What happens when we're just tracking our calories in this sense of coming to our body composition is carbs are really, really amazing with helping out with that energy in the gym and outside, protein, muscle growth and recovery, fat for hormonal balance. Now, when we're not actually tracking our macros and we are reverse dieting, we're just tracking our calories, there is a solid chance that you might not be eating enough carbs, you might not be eating enough fat, and we're not hitting our macros if they're calculated correctly. We know for certain that we are eating the correct amount of food for our body and for our goals and can adjust our macros from there to make sure that we are having that continuous progress. Just to add in this, please do not calculate your macros using something like MyFitnessPal or those automated calculators that do just your height, your weight, and your age and activity factor. Those lead to inaccurate macros. You want something that is going to take into account your metabolic health. Very important. The macro calculator is available. It's always available to anyone and everyone. I always have the link down below in the show notes. So you're more than welcome if you want to go and just take a peek, go ahead and do so. So when it comes to tracking macros versus tracking calories and body composition, those who track their calories often, this is like one of my least favorite sayings. I don't like the term skinny fat, but people know what I'm talking about. So women who are tracking their calories in a calorie deficit, so they reverse diet, they go into a calorie deficit, they're going to have more of a skinny fat body composition than if they were tracking their macros, which would allow them to have that beautiful muscle growth. It will actually enhance the fat loss and it will give you a different body composition. Now, when it comes to reverse dieting and tracking our macros, what's really important to note here is we have that protein for muscle growth and recovery. We have those carbs for our energy balance. We have our fat as a secondary source of energy and also hormonal balance. So as we're going through that reverse diet process, our macros, so our protein, our carbs, and our fat are going to be increased and adjusted separately from each other in order to maximize that muscle growth, in order to maximize that energy, to make sure everything is balancing out nicely. When we're just tracking our calories, when we're going through a reverse diet, what happens is it comes back to the body composition. You're going to notice a lot less muscle growth. You're going to notice a lot of a big difference in your body composition when you're tracking your calories versus just tracking your macros. When you're tracking your macros, you will have a more lean, muscular look, if you will. And when you're tracking your calories, you're not going to actually be adequately building muscle necessarily. I'm not going to say that for everyone. I'm sure there are people out there who will, and that's lovely and great. However, when we're tracking our macros, it allows us to really lean into maximizing that fat loss, maximizing that muscle growth, and making sure that we are going into the space where we are seeing those changes to our body. So tracking macros are just so far superior when it comes to having that kick butt body composition. That's not everybody's goal, and that's okay. And also, I would still say that tracking macros far superior than tracking calories. Even when it comes into our second topic here, when we are in a reverse diet, one of the main goals is making sure that we are healing our metabolism. We are making sure all of the systems in our body are resetting. We are making sure that everything is balancing out nicely. And we want to ensure that we're having proper energy and hormonal balance. So we want to make sure that we're eating adequate of each of our macros. And what happens is often we're tracking just our calories. We tend to obsess over the number of the calories and the number that we are eating. So here's an example is we go to a random app. We're like, how many calories should I be eating? This is also an example of MyFitnessPal fails because I do not like MyFitnessPal, and they just give you these cookie cutter numbers and it's going to shoot out 1,200 calories. Guess what? It also gave everybody else in the world 1,200 calories. And the problem is we now have this number 1,200 in our head. Oh, I have a good quick side story. I was at the Apple store. I needed to get a new laptop. And I'm not normally one to create a big old conversation and talk about how much I dislike diets and Weight Watchers and just pyramid type vibes. Not for me, not my vibe. And I will also say before I get into the story, I kept my mouth shut this entire time. Caitlen was sitting there and he was like, your entire demeanor, like your energy just changed. He was like, I wasn't listening to what happened. And there was a lady at the table who was talking about the fact that she was a coach. I don't know, it was 21 Day Fix or something like that. And it really ruffled my feathers because she was just talking about how calorie deficits and everybody should be eating 1,200 calories and you should never eat Chick-fil-A. You should never eat Chipotle. You should never eat sugar. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was sitting there like eyes wide, completely stiff. I cannot handle this. I kept my mouth shut the entire time. I'm just not the kind of person who's going to create a dramatic situation. Not for me. She can keep it on with a 21-day fix, and we'll all be happy over here eating all the food that we love. Coming back to this example, we hear these diets out there putting people at these 1,200 calories. We don't know any better, so we just dive blindly into it. And what happens is it creates this hyper focus on that number 1,200. So when we see we're eating more than 1,200 calories, we immediately go into this panic mode of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be completely off track. I'm panicking that I'm eating more. And the beautiful thing about when we're tracking our macros during this amazing reverse diet is because the adjustments are so specific and so precise, and they are so perfect to make sure that you are not having that weight regain. It gives you more comfort going through the process of reverse dieting when you're tracking your macros. Because number one, if you're doing it in the way that I like to educate my clients, you know the what, the why, and how. You see why we're eating more carbs, why we're eating more fat. And it allows you to go into the process of reverse dieting a lot more in an ease place, because it is nerve-wracking doing something that is outside of your comfort zone. There is no sugarcoating that. Reverse dieting can be intimidating for plenty of women. I was terrified when I did my first reverse diet. And also, I didn't let that fear hold me back. That means if I'm scared, but I know this is for me, it means I need to go head first into this, and it will be the thing that changes my life. And it was. And one of my clients, Amber, I love her. She's just a hoot. But she said, a reverse diet is a journey of healing, and it's the greatest gift I will ever give myself. And she said, I can't wait to continue learning and falling in love with myself. How beautiful is that? It is a journey of healing, and it's the greatest gift she will ever give herself. Reverse dieting is a gift to you from yourself. And the beautiful thing here is, when done properly, obviously you won't have all that mass weight regain. But when you're just tracking your calories, you can also eat under certain numbers. So you might be eating less carbs, you might be eating less fat. But I think it's important to note, if you're someone who does struggle with the mindset around food and with the mindset of good food, bad food, and stress over eating more than 1,200 calories or whatever your number is, I think it's important to note that tracking macros can actually help you mentally step away from the stressors of getting off track and good food and bad food. So when it comes to facing those triggers, I think the beautiful thing about tracking macros, and I talked about this in the last episode, you can start to fit those foods into your day-to-day. So eat the Oreos, eat the Reese's, eat those fun foods. And it's really nice because you know that you have the perfect number to make sure you're going in the right direction. And you can let go of the fear of, I have to hit 1,200 calories, and you can move on knowing that your energy is going to be increasing, your libido is going to be increasing, your body is going to be functioning at its absolute best. So I am very pro macros versus calories. However, I do want to play devil's advocate here. So if you are somebody who is so gung-ho and stressed about tracking your macros and moving away from tracking your calories, and it is completely holding you back from actually taking that forward movement and taking action, I highly suggest to just go ahead and dive on into your reverse diet. Don't sit there and contemplate it for another month, another week, another 3 weeks. I'm a perfectionist, and sometimes people are like, it's going to stress me out to track macros. I take a very free approach to macros. And that's just the way that I am. I'm not the kind of person who says, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. You must always hit your macros. If you don't hit them one day, you are the worst. No, that's not the way that rolls. That's not the way that our body works. I'm going to Universal this weekend. I am coming back. I know I'll be right on track. I know my body will be used to tracking macros because I track them 99% of the time. I eat the food that I love. And also, my body is resilient because I've trained it and really healed it. And I know I'll be able to jump back into things. So I think it's important to note, if you are so stressed about tracking your macros or moving away from tracking calories that it's holding you back from taking action on your reverse diet, that's okay. Maybe now is not the time to go ahead and make that shift, but you want to go ahead and dive into your reverse diet. Now, here comes my last little piece here is adjustments when going through a reverse diet. I prefer adjusting macros than I do adjusting calories. Now, there's a couple different scenarios that I've heard. If anybody ever tells you to just increase your macros by 500 calories or just bump them on up, even the 50 to 100 calories, I'm not a fan of that, because that's not the way that our body's going to properly adapt to these new calorie intakes, these new macro intakes, increasing that metabolic set point. Please do not just randomly increase your intake, your macros, your calories, whichever one you decide to go down. This can cause weight regain. When we are in a calorie deficit, let's say, for example, 1,200 calories, that's where our metabolic set point is. That's where our metabolism sits. If we all of a sudden go to eating 2,000 calories, that is not a reverse diet. That is solely eating more food. That means you are now eating 800 extra calories a day, which therefore means weight regain. When it comes to adjusting for a reverse diet, when we are adjusting our macros, we adjust our protein, our carbs, and our fat separately, week by week, depending on a bunch of different variables. And it's really important to note that by doing these increases, and it comes back to what we were talking about before, by doing these increases specifically to our carbs or to our fat, we are helping our body slowly but surely adapt to an increased intake in those carbs, in those fat, in those protein, and it allows our body to actually enhance that muscle growth, enhance that fat loss, because we're eating more in a way that doesn't completely overload our body into a mass surplus of food. And I've helped clients in the past adjust their calories. It's a very different process, but it is possible, 1,000% possible. And I have helped clients in BPM do that. However, I personally prefer to adjust via tracking macros and adjusting macros because the body composition change, our mentality, knowing that we have exactly what we need to make sure we're hitting our goals, the adjustments are better. All of those pieces are a little bit superior than just tracking our calories. But again, being devil's advocate, if you cannot let go of wanting to track your calories, don't let that be what's stopping you from doing your reverse diet. I encourage you to think about the topics here in this episode of what you want in your body composition. If you are someone who's fearful of carbs, let's go ahead and work on that. I would still always recommend tracking your macros. However, if you really are having that setback, go ahead and track those calories and do that reverse diet. So with all of this, I am always here if you have extra questions or just enjoying the podcast episode. I love to hear everything that you lovely ladies have to say. And I am opening my Instagram inbox for suggestions on episodes that you want to hear. I absolutely freaking love when you reach out on Instagram and let me know, even if it's just telling me I love blank podcast episode. If you don't even have an idea of what you want to hear next, that is a-okay. And it makes me so happy. And don't forget to leave a 5-star rate and review. That makes me so happy as well. So I look forward to teaching you all of the goodies in the next episode, and we'll see you then. Bye, my beautiful peach. Don't forget to snag your completely free high-protein macro cookbook by simply doing a 5-star rate and review on this podcast. All you need to do is submit a 5-star rate and review, then send us your name and email through the link in the show notes so we know exactly where to send your cookbook. By submitting your 5-star rate review, this will also automatically enter you into the weekly podcast macro calculator giveaway. Every week, I give away a copy of my C. Schmidt macro calculator to one lovely winner who leaves an awesome 5-star rate and review. This winner is announced every week on my Instagram story as well as my newsletter email list. So leave that 5-star rate and review, and I'll see you in the next episode.